425 days ago, that's how long it's been since we've seen Mykhailo Mudryk on the pitch. I mean, you'd be forgiven if you had forgotten about him at this point, given it's been over a year since you've seen him play. Now, back in June 2025, we heard from the FA that they have indeed charged Mudryk with a violation of their anti-doping rules. This came about 6 months after it was announced that he had tested positive for a banned substance and was provisionally suspended. A substance that's barely known or used in the USA, UK, and most of Europe, but was used by Soviet soldiers when they were fighting in Afghanistan in order to improve their stamina. However, there are many who believe that this drug never should have been on the prohibited list in the first place, as its effectiveness as a performance-enhancing drug is very divisive. The divisiveness made evident when a certain tennis star tested positive for the substance in 2016. Now, recently there have been some silly rumors on social media that he's soon to return, about him joining the squad to train, etc. But there haven't been any official confirmations, and those videos and images that were posted are actually from 2024. So where are we in all of this? What's going on? Why was he banned? When could he potentially return?
The Ukrainian has signed for what we believe to be a fee that could rise up to £88.5 million.
This was the biggest transfer in Ukrainian football history, and Chelsea's record.
Chelsea would of course break that record later in that same window, but prior to his signing, the Mudryk, Arsenal, and Chelsea soap opera was a long one. Eventually he joined the Blues in January of 2023, and he was bright against Liverpool in his debut. But his form went a bit quiet on the output end of things for some time, getting just 2 assists in 655 minutes of Premier League football to close out that season. The following season, he got some goals and production under Pochettino, but still wasn't hitting expectations. With Enzo Maresca taking over at Chelsea, Mudryk wasn't given the Sterling treatment, but he was largely relegated to Conference League action, and he was doing well there. His performance against Panathinaikos in particular felt like a turning point for him, despite Premier League action still being scarce for Mudryk. Now, during the November international window, Mudryk took part in 2 Nations League matches for Ukraine against Georgia and Albania. And this is allegedly where things went wrong. Now, he did feature for Chelsea against Heidenheim at the end of November 2024, after the international break, as well as sat on the bench for 2 Premier League matches. December 1st, 2024 was the last time he would appear in a Chelsea matchday squad, as he was then listed as ill for their Premier League matches against Southampton, Spurs, and Brentford, as well as a Conference League match against Astana. All of these matches were from December 1st to December 15th, and according to the Telegraph, even his squad mates were left in the dark, wondering where he was in this 2-week period. Then, on December 17th, 2024, Chelsea released a statement that read as follows. Chelsea Football Club can confirm the Football Association recently contacted our player Mykhailo Mudryk concerning an adverse finding in a routine urine test. Both the club and Mykhailo fully support the FA's testing program, and all of our players, including Mykhailo, are regularly tested. Mykhailo has confirmed categorically that he has never knowingly used any banned substances. Both Mykhailo and the club will now work with the relevant authorities to establish what has caused the adverse finding. The club will not be commenting any further. Mudryk, or Misha, posted on Instagram that he was shocked by the news and that he never knowingly took any banned substances. According to sources such as The Athletic, they alleged at that time that Mudryk tested positive for the banned substance Meldonium immediately after returning from international duty with Ukraine in November. It's important to note that none of his Ukraine teammates tested positive for Meldonium either. From there, he was forced to wait for a verdict from the Football Association's anti-doping program. A shame for Misha and Chelsea, really, as it felt like his career at Stamford Bridge had never really got up and running, but there were signs that it could do so in some of those Conference League performances. But first, what is Meldonium?
According to a study in the British Medical Journal, there's an alarmingly high use of meldonium by athletes. The study looked at last year's European Games and found that in 15 out of the 21 games played, athletes were found to be using meldonium.
Now, this drug was first really noticed in the sports world in 2016. If you're a tennis enjoyer, then perhaps you'll remember this iconic moment.
I wanted to let you know that a few days ago I received a letter from the ITF that I had failed a drug test at the Australian Open.
Maria Sharapova, one of the best tennis players of all time, one of 10 women to get a career Grand Slam. In 2016, as she said, she failed a drug test, and the substance that was found in her system, Meldonium, a drug that was added to the World Anti-Doping Agency or WADA's banned list on January 1st, 2016. Now, not only did she admit to taking the drug, but she said that she had taken it for about a decade. Her reasons listed being regular sickness, early signs of diabetes, and, quote, irregular, unquote, results from echocardiography exams, which of course are ultrasounds to view how your heart is functioning, blood flow through the heart, etc. Now, blood flow. This is where Meldonium comes in. It's not licensed for use in plenty of places around the world, including the USA, the United Kingdom, most of Europe as well. I mean, your pharmacist couldn't even prescribe it for you for its intended use, which is to help with heart issues such as angina, ischemia, and other blood circulation conditions. It was created in Latvia by a man named Ivars Kalvins in the 1970s, and to this day, Eastern Europe is one of the only places where you see its use. That's why when you scroll through the list of athletes who have tested positive, they're predominantly from Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, Lithuania, etc. In fact, as mentioned, it was used by Soviet soldiers in Afghanistan to help with their circulation, which helps with their stamina, right? Calvin said, quote, high altitudes, oxygen deprivation, if they have to run 20 kilometers with all the gear, at the end they would get ischemia. They were all given Meldonium. They themselves were not aware they were using it. No one was being asked if they agree to it back then. Now, in Calvin's opinion, use of Meldonium shouldn't be considered doping in the first place, as he said that it, quote, allows you to withstand more physical pressure, but the body still spends its spare reserves. So in practice for an athlete, what does this mean? Here's an excerpt from an article written by Tom Bassendale, head of School for Biosciences and Chemistry at Sheffield Hallam University. The drug reduces the use of fatty acids for energy production. It pushes the body to instead use glucose, which is a more efficient energy source when there is reduced oxygen due to either heart disease or intense exercise. A review of published research showed that Meldonium has a performance-enhancing effect in animals and human volunteers. The shift to burning glucose is one effect. They also report that Meldonium can reduce the production of lactic acid during exercise, which reduces fatigue and also improves recovery rates after exercise. There is evidence that brain activity is improved by increased oxidation, meaning decision-making and movement control will be preserved longer. Athletes can produce better performance for longer in these situations. So you can see the usage case for athletes, right? For these reasons, it was banned by WADA. Okay, so back to Misha. Let's go to June of 2025. It took about 6 months for the FA to decide that they have charged Mykhailo Mudryk with an anti-doping violation, of which, if he is to be found guilty of that, he could face a ban of up to 4 years. Now, there are a few things that I find a bit unfair about this from a human perspective when it comes to the process the FA is going through. So he was provisionally suspended in December of 2024. So he was ineligible to even train with his Chelsea teammates, a complete ban from the club. In June of 2025, the FA essentially says, yep, we can confirm that you have indeed used a banned substance and we are going to charge you. But this is an ongoing investigation still, so we can't say any more, including how long your ban is going to be. Could be up to 4 years, but we don't know yet. Okay, great, but why are you taking so long? Like, time is of the essence. This is a player's career we are talking about here, because now, if he is to appeal or what have you, that will drag this ban out even longer than it already has been. The way that they draw out decisions is quite ridiculous. Misha has stuck with the fact that he never knowingly took the substance, even taking a lie detector test apparently, to try and prove his innocence. Hey man, he passed that, despite those tests being iffy, of course. Now, there are a couple of other things that are a bit strange in all of this. Mudryk has said that he believes his urine sample was actually potentially contaminated. And in putting some pieces together through my research, I can see why he would think so, assuming he didn't do this knowingly. In August of 2024, Mudryk passed a UK anti-doping test, and since he says nothing has changed in his diet or routine, how could Meldonium show up suddenly? It goes further though. Here's more from Tom Bassendale's article on Meldonium. Meldonium use needs several weeks to show health or fitness improvements. A negative test shortly before the positive helps the defense that it was not deliberate doping. One Russian study found meldonium in meat and cow's milk. This opens the door to the possibility of consuming contaminated foods from some countries. So, a few things here. If we assume he's guilty, then after his August test, which he passed, he started taking meldonium in order to get the benefits of it months later. But that doesn't align with what else we've heard, which is that he only tested positive for meldonium after the November international break. So, could he have gone almost 3 months without another test? It's possible, sure, but a bit unlikely. I mean, players have to let clubs know exactly where they are staying, which accommodation they're using if they go out on vacation during the season, for this reason as well, so that the testers can show up. And they've heard of this happening, showing up in Dubai to test somebody. There's a chance that Mudryk was taking meldonium from September to November, and he only got tested in November. But that seems like a very high risk and honestly stupid thing to do for marginal gains. But just because it's stupid doesn't mean that it's not a possibility, right? But it does, of course it's possible, but it doesn't seem likely that he wasn't tested in between there. The other thing mentioned about contamination from meat and cow's milk, the chances of that being the case are pretty low in Mudryk's case, as WADA requires 100 nanograms per milliliter to be report-worthy with meldonium. Anything below that should be ignored, so to speak. From food contamination, the maximum number found in a sample was 20 nanograms per milliliter. So Mudryk's test must have been above 100. Therefore, you can almost conclusively rule out food contamination. He must be referring to some kind of contamination, maybe the combining of another test, or somehow meldonium's traces got into his urine sample. Now, those things aside, the final thing that is unfortunate in all of this is that besides WADA banning it, there are plenty in the scientific community that do not believe it has any performance-enhancing effect on athletes. I mean, we know what the manufacturer of the drug said already, but what about others in the medical field? Michael Joyner, an anesthesiologist and physiologist who specializes in the study of human response to physical and mental stress during exercise, has said of meldonium, quote, "Evidence is lacking for many compounds believed to enhance athletic performance. Its use has a sort of urban legend element, and there is not much out there that is clearly that effective. I wouldn't be shocked if this stuff, meldonium, had an effect greater than caffeine or creatine, a natural substance that, when taken as a supplement, is thought to enhance muscle mass." Then there is Ford Vox, who is part of the American Board of Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation, who said of meldonium, quote, "There's not much scientific support for its use as an athletic enhancer." Don Catlin was an anti-doping expert who was also one of the founders of modern drug testing in professional sports. He was also the scientific director of the BSCG, the Banned Substances Control Group, and he said of meldonium, quote, "There's really no evidence that there's any performance enhancement from meldonium, 0%. Now, it's important to also note that WADA doesn't just ban certain substances due to a performance-enhancing effect that they may have. Olivier Rabin is the Senior Director of Science and Medicine at WADA, and back in 2016, he spoke of meldonium and WADA's process for banning drugs in general, saying, quote, "Our decision to ban a drug is about more than just performance enhancement. That is one consideration, yes, but we also consider whether the drug could harm the health of an athlete and whether taking the drug goes against the spirit of sport." For meldonium, it quickly came to our attention that there were clear patterns of use by entire teams, which usually suggests a drug isn't being taken for medical purposes. How could every member of a team need the same medical treatment? A few studies in the scientific literature also showed that meldonium had a potential performance-enhancing benefit. These elements left our experts with little doubt that the drug should be banned. In terms of being a health risk to athletes, meldonium is probably not a very toxic substance, although there have been a couple of papers recently questioning its safety. Even in this interview, Rabin is careful to say that there was a potential performance-enhancing benefit from the drug, not a conclusive or definite performance-enhancing benefit, but there are other reasons that they consider to ban certain substances, right? And that is exactly why I find this just a bit unfortunate for Mykhailo Mudryk. The likelihood of his ban getting reduced, whenever it is actually determined, that is, comes down to his defense. If he makes a good case for himself that he took it unknowingly, then his ban may get reduced, with his time already spent banned factored into it. Ultimately, the FA says that the athlete is at fault and is responsible for the presence of banned substances in their system, quote, regardless of how it got there or whether there was any intention to cheat. No arguments there, the rule is the rule, but it's unfortunate in a sense for Mudryk that the FA is dragging any and all decisions out, especially over a drug whose performance-enhancing benefit has been debated within the scientific community. It seems unlikely that Mudryk will be seen again this season, at least according to certain sources close to a Ukrainian commentator named Viktor Vatsko. So, like Mudryk, we're going to be waiting around quite a bit, waiting to hear the results of his charges from the FA. Don't hold your breath. We're still waiting on the verdict from the Man City case as well. But all the while, Mudryk's career is wasting away. Unfortunate. Thanks as always for watching, guys. Always appreciate your support and have a great day. Later.